INTJ people, in my experience, they're less frequently gonna tell you how they feel about you. You guys are like silent creatures, man.
Definitely sometimes I think, oh shoot, I should like be more emotionally expressive towards the people in my life.
I feel like if you're having some sort of relationship with an NE person, even like friendships, okay, like all sorts of thing about like talking to NE people, if you want to convey that you like them, they usually find like a really creative way to say it, like creative, poetic, like new words, new word combinations, and you're like, oh, that was so sweet of them to say. And I people, they tend to be like very straightforward. Like sometimes, if they appreciate you, maybe once in a blue moon, they'll be like, "Hey, I appreciate you." You're like, "Okay." That was like the most blunt way to say things. There's like no poetry in that at all.
NESI sort of grasp on language is just something that we don't have in terms of like SI, like categorizing all these words into their subtle different meanings from one another, and then like NE in terms of like fashioning them in this beautiful way or some sort of like metaphoric way or something. It's just like, yeah, there's just like a few standard phrases that like stick in my
You guys are like, nope, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, we got TE shit to do, man.
I find it a lot easier to communicate over like some sort of form of text messaging or like emails or some sort of written form where my NI can kind of take time to really process exactly what I want to say and write it out perfectly. But I think sometimes saying these things in real time to someone like right in front of you, it just, yeah, it's not enough time for our brain to process like coming up with like the perfect way to say something.
For me to say something like all poetic and NE and gushy to another NE person, they'll say something like similar back. Like they'll create their own thing, but sometimes I user will either say nothing, or they just confirm what you said, or they mirror what you said, and then you're like, oh. And then I used to think that that meant they don't really care, but then I realized that that's just how they express themselves.
Yeah, no, that's true that
You're like, yeah. You're like, I do care. I do have a heart.
when I was in a relationship, I was sort of aware that I could just say the same thing, like the same sort of phrase with like very similar wording into expressing how I feel. And I was kind of a little bit self-conscious of that. And like, oh, I hope that doesn't come across as like I'm just kind of repeating the same thing over and over without there being any feeling behind it. But it's just, yeah, that's sort of,
Yes, it does come across like that, but I'm mature, so I can handle it now. God damn it. SI thinks every word is like so important.
I kind of do that overthinking thing too, but I definitely don't do it with like specific words. I just like look at the phrase on the whole, and then I think, okay, so like, what are all the possible ways, like all the possible mental states they could have been in that would have produced them like saying that phrase to me?
Yeah, the point is like girls overanalyze every. No, I'm kidding. Like for an NI user to say something like so non-affectionate to an SI user, I think they don't realize. They're like, okay, generally I like you, like you know I generally like you, and I know you generally like me. So like, it doesn't really matter what I say in this one specific text message. It's all good, like all good, babe. But it's not like that at all. It's like not like that.
A lot of the time, and I don't know, it's like it's not as language based as like NESI. So it's kind of more like visceral, feeling based or like visual based paired with SE, I guess. Yeah, sometimes I have this vague notion of like what I want to say, and I just haven't found the correct words. And if I maybe had more time, I could probably find the correct words to express exactly what I mean. But a lot of the times I probably don't, and I just like find some words that are like good enough from like different parts of my brain and like mash it together and put it out there. And then like retrospectively, I'm like, oh crap, maybe that was like really blunt when like my internal process like had all these subtle nuances that I wanted to express.
Like, I feel like my feelings is oh my god, it's the other way around because my feelings literally changed because of my expressions.
Well,
My feelings are changing as I start to express myself. Like, this is how I get new ideas while I'm writing down an old idea.
oh my gosh, that's so like foreign to me. Whoa.
I do think that, like, for the whole love language thing, I think as I'm verbalizing something in an affectionate way, it's gonna make me feel more affectionate. It's gonna, like, intensify my feelings just because I found the right metaphor.
Whoa. See, if I force myself into saying something that like I don't mean, then I would actually feel even like further away from that emotion because I would feel like, oh, I didn't like express like my true feeling.
I wouldn't say that I'm, like, making up random stuff. It's like I start to. It's like, oh, this is why NE is the exploratory thing. It's not. I think SE is like a literal explorer, like Columbus, but NE is like a thought and feel like a thought feeling concept explorer because like I'll start to say something that's true, but because I found like a different way to say it, I'll start to feel and see it in that different way as well. So it's not that it's disingenuine, it's like it's literally you're exploring more feelings that you knew that you had.
Yeah, I see that. It seems then that maybe your emotional state is very quick to change. Maybe
I mean, aren't INFPs like famous for that? I mean, come on, like
I think like my emotional state is very slow to change and it just builds very slowly, so I might not realize. Yeah, it's always like a realization of like, oh, I'm feeling that.
I think that's just an INTJ thing.